Hey guys, All in Crypto here, and welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, for another YouTube video. Today, we are going to be talking about apparently the only successfully regulated crypto exchange in America by the appropriate bodies, Prometheum. Now, this is very strange given what we've seen other exchanges who have been hit with lawsuits come out with in regards to their frustration of the lack of regulatory clarity and pathways in regards to becoming regulated. They claim that the SEC has not allowed them to do this and not facilitated an appropriate framework and pathway for this to actually be the case, for them to get regulated. However, Prometheum, who showed up in front of Congress the other day, rather strangely and out of nowhere, are claiming that they are not only regulated, but that they agree with Gensler and that the majority of layer ones are indeed securities. Now, a couple of takes on this entire story is it's just some weirdness, a few coincidences, but nothing major. The kind of base case, which I think is more in the middle, is that these guys are, I don't want to use the word scammers, but they've essentially bamboozled regulators by suiting up and just essentially doing whatever they say in order to get into this position. And the kind of conspiratorial worst case is that regulators are in cahoots with these individuals and using them for their favor to kind of propagate and further their agenda. Now, I believe what's happening with Gensler is a massive power grab in the SEC. It doesn't make any sense. We saw this with the Hinman documents. We've seen this with what many exchanges have came out and sort of looked to put forwards. And actually, if you look at the fact that Gary can't answer a simple question like, is Ethereum a security? Even though he's been in the SEC chair position for a long time and actually taught blockchain prior at MIT, it all seems rather strange. So we're going to be diving into Prometheum, sharing the story with you, also sharing some hot takes on Twitter. We're going to be looking at Matt Walsh's comments because ultimately something is up here. And if you guys are wondering where the whole Prometheum thing has came from, well, we know that Aaron Kaplan testified in front of Congress with a number of others. And he actually came out in favor of what the SEC are doing. And not only did he come out in favor, he also claimed to be a regulated ATS or the first to be granted a kind of special license that makes them applicable with the crypto space. And actually, you'll see that Congressman Flood was just in complete confusion with everything because he said, what services do you offer? To which they said, we're not actually operational yet. So a lot of very interesting things going on. We're going to be sort of explaining it all to you. We're going to be looking at an article from CoinDesk, which I think did a pretty perfect job of summing all this up. And then we'll be looking at some comments from Matt Walsh and, of course, Adam Cochran. So, crypto lobbyists ask SEC for info on Prometheum, the mysterious regulated crypto firm. So how have they been regulated yet the likes of Coinbase and Binance perhaps haven't? The registered exchange backed Gensler's viewpoints in front of Congress, but now is in the hot seat itself. So let's move on. Blockchain Association lawyer Marissa Koppel announced this morning that Under Trading Group had filed a Freedom of Information Act with the US Securities and Exchange Commission, SEC, seeking records relevant to Prometheum. A crypto broker, Prometheum co-CEO and founder Aaron Kaplan spoke before the House Financial Services Committee on Tuesday, broadly in support of the Gary Gensler's SEC's position on crypto regulations. It's all very strange, this. Given that Prometheum is not widely known, Kaplan's appearance led to further scrutiny of the startup. Findings based on public records have since raised questions, and that the nature of Prometheus's business practices and relationships. Above all, many have questioned whether Prometheum had been accurate in presenting itself as a fully regulated crypto exchange, a claim that supports the SEC Gary Gensler's position, that existing regulations are sufficient for regulating crypto. Very interesting that, because we looked at a piece from the World Economic Forum, a white paper on global regulations, and even they say, okay, we don't want you to change the existing laws, but you need to modify them, so to speak, or look, for a pathway to cater for these crypto assets. And it's very interesting that Gary Gensler calling them crypto asset securities, World Economic Forum calling them crypto assets. Very interesting. Previously, you could have argued you could have argued is that there are regulations, but well, no one's been approved, so maybe there is no path under current rules. This is from the Prometheum CEO Aaron Kaplan, told CoinDesk last month. But now that Prometheum Capital has been approved, that argument is moot. So it's very interesting that all these top crypto exchanges have been coming out and saying you've not given us a pathway to regulate, and yet Prometheum, Aaron Kaplan, all show up before Congress and essentially not only testify in Gary Gensler's favor, but say that they've been regulated out of nowhere. Explaining further, Kaplan told CoinDesk in a statement on Thursday that Prometheum's affiliate companies are registered with the SEC and FINRA. Members, specifically Prometheum ATS, is an SEC alternative trading system, ATS, that matches orders for buyers and sellers of DAS under the federal securities laws, FSL. He also noted that Prometheum Capital, also a SEC registered and FINRA member broker-dealer, was recently approved an operation as a special purpose broker-dealer, meaning it is the first SEC registered custodian for DAS under the FSL. FINRA is a self-regulatory agency that regulates broker-dealers. Despite this self-characterization, Prometheum is not currently operational. This is the interesting thing about this. It seems like it's been pushed forwards as a way, potentially by the SEC, to further their agenda. Just my own take, guys. Don't have any actual proof on that, but the whole thing seems suspicious. And there are majority unanswered questions about the path forwards. Koppel said that the Blockchain Association decided to seek more information was driven by the growing suspicion around Prometheum. In the midst of an aggressive SEC enforcement, Prometheum received approval for the first of its kind special purpose broker-dealer for digital asset securities. She wrote, the CEO somehow gets a seat in front of Congress and argues that Prometheum represents the compliant path for digital assets. Seems very set up to me. But Koppel continued, Prometheum's claims are nonsense and not evidence of a path to compliance. Prometheum's ATS, alternative trading system, will not be able to trade any tokens despite their claims to the contrary unless the projects register with the SEC. So even with this license that seems very suspicious, they can't do anything because the cryptocurrencies themselves haven't registered with the SEC. Although there's been no clear framework in regards to them to do that, or explanation to why they even should. So Kaplan also told CoinDesk in a recent interview that it could not identify assets intended to trade when it opens. So they can't even give you a definition. And if we're going to go on to a number of clips and look at this in more depth than Matt Walsh's tweets, it just does. None of this makes sense. And we are absolutely on the side now, guys, that there's a lot more here than meets the eye, and there's something going on in the background. We know that BlackRock, of course, recently filed officially for an ETF for Bitcoin the other day. Very timely. Lots of things aren't adding up. In fact, lots of things are adding up, and it's leading towards a rather suspicious case. So Koppel characterized these and other findings about Prometheus as suspicious. Some crypto leaders have speculated that Prometheum's appearance before Congress represents a tactical effort to support the SEC's position in Tuesday's hearings. However, Kaplan remains confident in his company's regulatory approval. As for the Blockchain Association, we can't provide comment to their motivations, but having passed the SEC and CFIUS reviews, Prometheus is confident our organization has been vetted by relevant regulatory bodies, he told CoinDesk in a statement. Crypto analyst Adam Kochran and venture capitalist Matt Walsh lit the fuse on suspicion about Prometheus with a pair of dives into public information about the firm. They include suggestions that Prometheum had obtained funding through unconventional sources and had at one point decided to launch token. We can show you those tweets also where they're diving into it. Also notably is that Prometheum's leadership includes Aaron Kaplan, his brother Benjamin Kaplan, and their father Martin Kaplan. Aaron Kaplan, who testified before Congress as securities law expert, earned his law degree at Thomas Jefferson Law School. Walsh pointed out that while the Kaplans are being held up as security laws, the school's national accreditation was stripped by the American Bar Association in 2019 over concerns including the academic program there. Benjamin Kaplan also earned his JD from Thomas Jefferson, according to biographical information posted by the family law firm. Walsh described his finding as beyond bizarre, which we'll look at. They would seem to fit general theories that Prometheum was given standing to testify before Congress because they were saying things that the authorities wanted to hear, rather than because they were prominent, influential, knowledgeable, and successful at running crypto businesses. Andrew Bailey, associated professor at Singapore, Yale, NUS College, and part of the Resistance Money Crypto Research Group, summed up 3 possible interpretations of the situation. We'll move on to take a look at them again. Best case is it's just weirdness and a few coincidences. Worst case is that they've kind of bluffed their way and are fraudulent in even getting the regulations in the first place, but been approved them. And the second, of course, is conspiratorial, which is the regulators are in cahoots, and so on and so forth. So at least one prominent voice in the crypto regulatory world, lawyer Preston Byron, dismissed conspiracies, writing, Aaron Kaplan has been working on Prometheus since 2015. It comes from a family of lawyers and has views on token consistence with that background. There's nothing fishy, just noticed him, and it's just nobody noticed him until a week ago. So it's all very interesting. Let me know what you make of the whole story. We're going to move on to some tweets from Matt Walsh, who essentially looks at this in a lot more detail. And he has a lot of interesting things to say. We'll fly through this. We can take a quick look at Aaron Cochran's tweet. But really, I think that after this, you guys will have a good understanding of everything and kind of be able to make your own minds up and what you really think is going on here. So the Prometheum storyline has got to be one of the strangest things I have seen in a while in this industry. Has anyone actually looked into this? Beyond bizarre. Last month, in the midst of the SEC bringing cases onto Coinbase, Gemini, and so on and so forth, and giving the stiff arm to Robinhood and others, Prometheus gets approved for the first kind of special purpose broker-dealer license for digital asset securities. The Prometheum CEO somehow gets a seat in front of Congress yesterday and starts reading off a pre-written note by the SEC. This is a clip I'd like to play you guys. Let me just make sure I've got my sound in order, because this just seems very scripted. And then we're going to play another clip at the end of Congressman Flood even struggling to make any sense whatsoever of this. So I'll just test that this sound is working. There we go. Let's play this clip of him in front of Congress, looking to be reading off of a script, and actually the congressman even sounding like she was reading off a script to an already scripted answer.
System is the separation of banking and commercial activity. The Republican-led stablecoin legislation we are discussing here today seems to fail to recognize this separation for stablecoin issuers. This would allow non-commercial businesses to own a stablecoin issuer. Can you explain the harm to both consumers and perhaps financial stability that could arise from failing to clearly define this separation?
Consolidation of consumer and banking activities can lead to conflicts of interest and potential systemic risk. Essentially,
look at him reading off of a script. Look at the other answers that were given that day. Okay? Something's fishy here, guys. Something's fishy about this whole thing. And I'm not just saying that because obviously you guys know we're long and ultimately we just look at what's going on.
a lack of strong frameworks with properly regulatory oversight for the entities involved, particularly when they're commingling consumer and financial-based activities, presents additional levels of conflict and potential exposure to the underlying customers, either on the consumer side or
Thank
on
you,
the
Mr.
financial
Caput.
side.
Gentlewoman's time has expired.
Very, very interesting. It doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I'm not sure if it does to you. Let's move on and progress with this tweet, and then we'll wrap this video up. One more video to play. So, as this individual points out, this ATS absolutely will not work unless the projects first register the tokens with the SEC. There are currently no token registered with the SEC because the current regime is not viable for public blockchains. This individual's pointing this out and essentially saying what's happening. US Representative Mike Flood hit the nail on the head on why Prometheum's claims are utter nonsense. We'll play that clip after we've got through the tweet. The Prometheum guy wanted us to believe that all layer ones are securities and will need to come and trade on Prometheum. Not happening, but entered Prometheum's chain. What is that you say? These guys have their own chain. Yes, a token. So very hypocritical and doesn't quite make sense. Well, that's just PPT slide. They survey won't do a token. Wrong. They already pre-sold some something and others. Who is Wang Zhang? Someone might want to look into the CCP affiliate. So it gets even deeper. This is getting right down the rabbit hole. The main sort of conspiracy here is that, you know, has this guy been put in by the SEC? Because not only has he essentially, or is he trying to nullify the exchanges didn't know how to regulate, or there was no pathwork given, but he's also claiming and very much fighting for Gary Gensler's approach. According to PitchBook, Prometheum has raised $48.1 million. Like all private companies, they are required to file a Form D when they raise. Oddly, even in their early rounds, they use an investment bank to raise capital. Very rare for venture-backed startups at early stages. They have paid in excess of $1.5 million in sale commissions to the NJ based outfit called Network One Financial Services. Network One Financial Services. It's really getting deep down the rabbit hole here, guys. It then goes and talks about their degrees. It doesn't make a great deal of sense. And I want to now go back to Mike Flood's comments on the whole thing and just finish this off, because even he knows that this is, and it's very strange when you find yourself agreeing with a congressman, and actually, certainly in the United States, and actually, I think they've been pretty good in regards to a lot of what they've been coming out and saying in favor of the crypto markets and persecuting Gary Gensler, who's clearly doing this for special interests. I was going to go over the tweet for Adam Cochran. However, what I'll do is I'll leave links to both of these in the description. You guys can take a look at them yourselves. Let's finish off with this video, and then, of course, I will love and leave you.
I now recognize myself for 5 minutes. I'd like to start by to read a question from a comment letter that Prometheum sent in response to the SEC's December 2020 Special Purpose Broker-Dealer Framework. Quote, "The definition of a digital asset security as used in the proposal is a digital asset that meets the definition of a security under the federal securities laws. This definition puts a burden on the industry to determine which digital assets are securities. As a result, we believe the clarity is needed to understand the regulatory framework they must comply with," end quote. That was in a letter dated April 26 from Prometheum, specifically signed by Benjamin S. Kaplan, co-CEO of the company. I offer this into the record without objection. This concern, which Prometheum themselves raised in 2020, probably sounds familiar for those who track this committee closely. It is the exact same concern we've heard from witnesses in front of this committee before. How can a broker-dealer register if they don't know which assets are a security and which are not? Further, it makes the same argument that other firms have made, that the lack of clarity from the SEC puts an undue burden on the industry. Mr. Kaplan, in your testimony, you were very confident that no new legislation is needed in the digital asset space to clarify this question. What has changed between the date of this letter in 2021 and when your firm called for clarity, and now? What has changed?
Over the 2+ years since that time, there's been additional enforcement actions and statement by the SECs, which have clarified any questions that we had in regards to the designation of a digital asset as a security.
Mr. Kaplan, Prometheum's website says that Prometheum ATS supports, quote, many tokens that mostly trade on crypto exchanges.
Wait for it, guys. This is where it gets really interesting and you can really start to smell the BS.
End quote. I'd like to dig in on that just a little bit. Can Prometheum customers trade in Ether? If your answer is yes, please explain how.
Not currently.
Can Prometheum customers trade in Bitcoin? If your answer is yes, please explain how.
No.
Just for the audience at home's benefit, Ether and Bitcoin make up more than 60% of the digital asset market. Mr. Kaplan, given that either Ether and Bitcoin make up more than 60% of the digital asset market, if the current system is working, why can't your customers trade the most popular and widely used digital assets?
Here we go.
Regulation and new ATSs and custodians should take a crawl, walk, run approach, and essentially they will proceed to add additional assets and abilities as time goes on. I'd like to point out when the...
I'm going to reclaim my...
What? Did you hear that? Because I did, and that sounds like bullshit to me. You know, it's the crawl should have happened, and regulators should have caught this industry when it first came about. Instead, they ignored it, and now they're trying to play catch up and power grab and get whatever power back that they can. That's what this is all about, guys. It's got nothing to do with them actually believing that many of the cryptos are securities. Some are, undoubtedly. But it's really about a power grab, a slowing down of this industry until they're ready to cater for it. And actually, BlackRock, every institution is interested in the crypto space.
My time. Mr. Kaplan, did Prometheum receive any additional exemptive relief from the SEC that has not been publicly shared?
No.
Thank you, Mr. Kaplan. Prometheum's special purpose broker-dealer license does not address the core issue. There is not a consistent definition of a digital asset security within current law. This point was made obvious when Chair Gensler could not say definitively whether Ether is a digital asset security when asked by Chairman McHenry in this very room a couple months ago. In other words, that same question that Prometheum themselves raised in their 2021 comment letter is still unanswered. That's why legislation is needed. That's the problem that the chairman's bill works to solve. To testify in front of our committee that your company's charter, which only allows for trading in a very small subset of assets, is evidence that no legislation is needed, just doesn't make sense. If anything, the fact that Prometheum's customers cannot trade some of the most popular digital assets is an illustration of the broader problem, Mr. Kaplan. I yield.
Boom. There we go. Thank you, Mr. Flood. On that note, I'm going to love and leave you. It is Friday, guys. Enjoy your weekends. Crypto price action is really just suffering from nothing more than a lack of interest right now. It's the summer. Look at Google searches. Look at all this stuff. It will come back. You know, every single market is going very much in the right direction that we've expected it to since the start of the year. The cryptocurrency market will catch up. Remember what's going on here, guys. You are going to be a part of the next technological revolution, and that should excite you. Enjoy your Fridays. I'll catch you all in the next one. Thanks a lot for watching, and please share this video around.